Welcome to Kaluga. What's up guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm in the city of Kaluga, the capital of Kaluga Oblast and only 3 hours away from the center of Moscow. This city is known in Russia as the cradle of cosmonautics due to the favorite son of this city, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. He is one of the Soviet Union's premium cosmonaut engineers and he's one of the reasons why the Soviet space program was so successful. Lots of the sites in this city are links to him and his memory, and I can't wait to see some of them. This city has over 340,000 people, making it the 55th biggest city in Russia, and it lies on the river Oka. And I can't wait to have a look around, so let's go. We begin today in Kaluga, next to the main theatre here in this city, on one of the main squares, Theatre Square. Theatre Square is right in the middle of basically the main street in this city, Kirov Street, which you can see behind here. It runs almost directly east to west. This is the main shopping street in the city. It's got lots of restaurants and it's also got lots of beautiful churches. Unfortunately, there aren't so many original buildings left on that street. However, lots of the renovated ones which have been done up are pretty beautiful and are worth a look and worth a walk down if you're ever here. So let's leave this square and go explore the city. Coming from Theatre Square is this Theatre Street. Theatre Street is a pedestrianised road, as you can see behind me, which has lots of cafes and souvenir shops, and a couple of statues, including one of a man staring into space who resembled Tsiolkovsky. At the start of Kirov Street is this Peace Square, Plaza Mira. And in the center of this square is a statue, as you can see behind me. That is Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, the most famous son of Kaluga. The people here are very proud of his achievements. He was a cosmonautics engineer. He was highly responsible for the success of the Soviet space program. And because of this, there are monuments around this city dedicated to him. This here in the middle of this square is a just bigger than life-size statue of him, with right behind him a statue of a rocket. Four years later, in 1970, an eternal flame was added, and then an extra 5 years later a statue depicting Mother Russia was placed on the top of the obelisk, holding this ribbon, which is a symbol for the river here, the river Oka. This behind me here now is the Holy Trinity Church. Started in 1786 and finally finished in 1818. This is by far the biggest and the most impressive church in Kaluga. During the Soviet Union, the Bolsheviks thought about blowing this church up. They analysed the cost of blowing it up and then the cleanup and decided it was just not worth it. So instead, this church was used as a vegetable storage facility. It was basically a warehouse. A few years later in the Soviet Union, it was also used as a sports hall. But then, following the fall of the Soviet Union, the return of the Russian Federation, this church was returned back to the Orthodox Church, and now services resume as normal. Behind me here is the church of the beheading of St. John the Baptist. It was built originally in 1735, and throughout the 18th century it was changed, it was added to, bits burnt down, etc. until the end of the 18th century when this church reached its final form, which we see today. And now it's a very beautiful purple church here in the centre of Kaluga, and a great site for the city. Throughout the Soviet Union from the 1920s onwards, this was used as storage until the 1990s, when it was restored back as a church and handed back to the church here in Russia, and now is a fully functioning church. I'm now in Gostiny Dvor, which is essentially this city's first ever shopping centre. It's from way before shopping centres were a thing, and it took over 40 years to build. It's a combination of 14 different buildings all around this main square in the Baroque and also Gothic styles. This building now, this area now, doesn't have markets like it used to have in the past. It now has coffee shops, other cafes, and you see little stalls around here, different boutiques, things like that. It's really nice, and a nice red, orangey kind of colour, and it's now basically a decorative element for the city rather than a functional market. I'm now on Golden Alley, a popular place for locals to come and walk. This is the site of the former Kaluga Kremlin, the fortress which was once in this city. Nowadays it's just paths and trees, and a nice place to go for a lovely stroll. As well as paths, as well as trees and flowers, there are also a few monuments, such as this one here, a monument to the victims of political repression, and across the road a monument to Pushkin, the author. Also in this area you can see behind me some beautiful old buildings which are now mainly used for local government. This stone bridge behind me was built in 1785 based on the drawings of architect Nikitin. This bridge resembles a Roman aqueduct and is in fact the only bridge of this type which exists in the whole of Russia. Kaluga celebrated its 600th birthday in 1971. So in commemoration of this day, they built this, a giant monument, which you can see when you cross the bridge over the river into this city. It's the first thing that greets you when you come into Kaluga. The monument is a 50-meter high obelisk next to a giant sphere. On the obelisk, you can see here, there's a face which is clearly Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space. This obelisk and this sphere are in commemoration of this city being known as the cradle of cosmonautics. Behind me here is the house of Tsiolkovsky, the man we've been talking about so much today. He lived here for 29 years, from 1904 till 1933. In 1935 he died, and 1 year later they turned this house into a museum remembering his life, a house museum, keeping everything in place how he left it and making it an educational thing for people who want to know and learn about him and his life. During the Nazi occupation here in Kaluga, the inside and actually the outside was slightly damaged, but following the victory of the Soviet Union, they rebuilt this house, they renovated it back to how it used to be when Tsiolkovsky lived here. Now it's a museum. People come here when they visit Kaluga to learn about the favourite son of this city. This here is something else named after Tsiolkovsky Park. It was named in his honour in 1935, the year of his death. In the centre of the park they built this, an obelisk. At the bottom of the obelisk you see a picture of Tsiolkovsky, a description of him, and also a quote from him. What you don't see is right below here, down the base of this obelisk, is Tsiolkovsky's grave. He's buried right here in the middle of Tsiolkovsky Park. This behind me is the Cosmonautics Museum here in Kaluga. It was opened to the public in 1967 and was the first museum dedicated to astronaut cosmonautics in the entire world. This museum has a whole collection of things like spaceships and space-related equipment, and the first stone of this museum was actually laid by Yuri Gagarin himself, the first man in space. As well as the vast collection of Tsiolkovsky memorabilia and Tsiolkovsky designs they have inside this museum, they also have something far more modern. This, a Vostok rocket from the late Soviet program.